Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hola y bienvenidos, Mythos Busters. This is episode 78. I'm Sean. Joining me are my buddies. We got the full crew tonight, so let's hop over to Ian first.
Hello.
Hey, Ian. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just lovingly fondling this Where the Gods Dwell pack that just came in the mail and looking forward to diving into that soon.
Yeah, I don't want to make too light of it, but based on the last couple intros when I've checked in with you, I half expected you to go, well, caught coronavirus this week.
I would put the odds pretty good, so but it has not struck me yet.
Well, we'll hope that streak keeps going. Joining us as well is Nick. Hey, Nick.
Hello.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Yes, I'm all right. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
And of course, we've got Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hi.
Whether you?
Still sore from TNA.
Yeah.
Still.
I'm recording standing tonight because I haven't been able to sit all week.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in just a moment, I'm sure. So we've got a fun episode for you guys tonight. We don't actually have a whole lot up front. We got a little, obviously we got our normal check-ins, a little bit of patron stuff, no news. And our discussion topic tonight is we're going to run through the campaigns as they have thusly released and talk about what investigators might be the best ones to consider from a mechanical standpoint. So it should be a pretty fun one tonight. And of course, we'll round it out with Tentacle Time. But before we do any of that, let's check in. Normally I go last, so Scott, let's you and I go first this time.
Oh boy.
So on my, for me personally, I have one campaign going right now. It's my Agnes and Wendy campaign through TCU. I'm halfway through Union and Dissolution and remembered exactly how much I kind of actually despise the scenario and trying to figure out how to get those damn circle tests. Also Whippoorwills. It's just frustrating.
Oh yes. My favorite encounter card.
I've been I pulled a shyster move with this one just because I'm kind of in experimentation mode. I got halfway through this campaign with that Agnes build that I was talking about last time, and I think that is actually and just kind of to preface what that was. The original idea of it was to build an Agnes deck where I actually want to play the heirloom down, just lots of spells, Diana, Esperance, and kind of using the suite of spell events and just kind of ideally playing a lot of spells. But I kind of came to the conclusion halfway through that campaign that that's actually a Marie deck. I'm just playing it with the wrong investigator. So I pivoted and was like, okay, what's new space for Agnes to explore? So I started looking through some of the stuff that's come out for her since the last time I really played her, which was Carcosa, I think. The last real campaign I played was her with her was Carolyn and Agnes, my Thelma and Louise campaign. So lots of stuff has come out. But what caught my eye was Meat Cleaver. Because, taking horror is kind of Agnes's thing, and that's a willful way to take horror, so it seemed interesting to explore. So I started to play around with it a little bit, kind of got into the idea of like, okay, maybe I'll upgrade into Blood Pact and like, okay, so if I'm playing with Doom, let's actually get in like, maybe Moonlight Ritual and Renfield and okay, Prophesy might work. And then I started to fill the deck out. I'm like, this doesn't have many items. I'm able-bodied, hell yeah. So I'm like, all right, I figured this new fucking deck out. So I get out to Arkham DB, I put it in there. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll actually share this thing. Because this is new. No one's done this yet. And I get out there.
Oh, you sweet
like,
summer child.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually get out there and I look at Agnes decks just because I wanted to check. And it's like one of the top-rated Agnes decks out there. It was like 5 or 6 cards different from the deck I built. I'm like, oh, well, all right. Either way, though, it is fun. It is fun space for Agnes to play in, so I am enjoying it. But like I said, I kind of I pulled a shyster move, and I used the same XP and kept trauma and everything, but I'm trying out a whole new build halfway through this campaign, and it's been fun. So beyond that, though, and of course, Justin and I played. What's the Web of Dreams #3? Point of No Return.
Yeah.
Played that last night in person with our Luke and Tony campaign. Did not go particularly well. That was hard. Is it right?
Point of No Return is the Underworld one, right? The Gug City one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that one is hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure it wasn't just me. That one really rocked us, and I felt like our decks were doing what they were supposed to do. There are so many bullet sponges in that scenario.
Well, and I think that one thing that we forget or maybe didn't realize is that, like, you know, the 4 scenario campaign is fun because you get like 10 experience per scenario, but that difficulty also just ramps right up. So
yeah, that's true. We were not prepared for it, and we got defeated. So there's that. And then Scott and I did This Day Night Arkham on our Twitch and YouTube channels this week. So if you have a mind to go check out playthroughs, definitely go look at that. They're shorter games, it turns out, compared to most of our games.
Yeah.
And Scott, you were kind of at the center of the action, of course. So I'll let you take it over.
Well, you know, it was actually going quite well before what I call the incident happened.
So we were playing our Skids and Daisy campaign.
Yeah, Skids and Daisy.
Return to Night of the Zealot.
Mm-hmm.
We did the Gathering, and then we were moving on to a side scenario. We chose Excelsior because Excelsior.
Yep. Well, yeah, we put it out to a vote, and Excelsior got the most amount of votes. So, and it was going really well. I have Lita Chandler in my deck from what do you call it? From Night of the Zealot, which is just an amazing card. Like, I can't believe that. Yeah, that's an insane ally.
She's pretty good.
Yeah, and so it's going pretty well. We're getting clues and stuff like this, and I get engaged with, and Nick, I believe it's the hotel security. Is it? Is it the enemy?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. In that particular, if you're talking the instance that I just linked in chat.
Yes. So I get engaged with this guy, and I need to do 2 damage to him, and I have a 45. I have the blade, the murder weapon, and he has retaliate, and he does 2 damage for his attack. So anyways, I go to attack him, and I'm 3 or 4 up, so I'm feeling pretty good, and I pull the tentacle token. I'm like, okay, well, that sucks. And I believe it was the first one of the game. And then I was
he retaliates for 2 damage.
Yep. I was like, okay, well, I better attack him again. And I pull another tentacle. It's like, okay. So then he retaliates again. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I have to take a horror to use the murder weapon to do 2 damage. And there's no way I could pull tentacle 3 times in a row. So I pull the tentacle. And he retaliates for 2 more damage, and then it's the enemy phase, and he hits me for another 2 damage. So in one round, I got hit for 8 damage, and it just wiped my board. Like, killed Lita, killed my beat cop, took out my fine clothes, and brought me like 1 damage from death. And I was like, shoot. And now my gun's empty, and it was just, oh my god. It was, and then, like, and it was funny because Nick, like, hopped in the chat. I was like, hey, you guys dead yet? We're like, no. And we're like, you know, kind of, I forget what I said, but I was like, oh man, Nick, we're taking
I
your
remember
scenario
what you
to the
said
cleaners or something.
Because I clipped it. I don't think it's in this clip, but yeah, I hopped in and I was like, you losers dead yet? And you're like, no, we succeeded on 4 noxious fumes tests, so your scenario's shit.
Oh,
and I
right.
was like, okay. And then literally the first token I see pulled is that first tentacle.
And I think, so starting with that tentacle token, like the next 6, it was like tentacle, tentacle, tentacle.
And then it went to my turn.
Yeah, -4, tentacle, -4 or something. Like, it was just, the bag was like, no, you're not playing this game anymore.
The bag was like, fuck you guys in particular.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then well, okay, there's a reason. Okay, slight hotel spoilers if you haven't played it, so plug your ears for 30 seconds. If you get a certain resolution, you can actually go back and, like, it's like time travel and play it again. And so I was like, Sean, you want to play again? We're like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. 5-minute break, and that second game, the amount of tentacles we pulled in that one, like, someone was keeping track, and it was in the 2 games, we pulled 2 Elder Signs and 12 tentacles.
And so many -4s as well. Like,
yes, like it was
the tentacles were the most pronounced, but there were a lot of -4s, and just like we weren't playing with like the most min-max decks, and I just what do you do?
Yeah, and friend of the show, Morton Dahl, messaged me today, and he's like, wow, like, what the hell am I watching? And then he's like, now I'm on to play 2. What the actual fuck is going on? Like, and he's chatting with me. He's like, I think I've seen 11 tentacles at this point. He's like, nope, 12. You just pulled another one. I was like, oh, God. So anyways, yeah. I have been running I know I was supposed to take a break from Ursula, but I built an Ursula deck for Frank from that other, the British podcast that's named after the card, the purple one. That gets 2 clues.
Ward of Protection.
Whatever they are. So, yeah, some Corset card. I don't know. And we were chatting, and he's like, oh, you should build an Ursula deck to just play on the Dream side of the Dream Eaters. And I built this super fast Ursula deck and played through the, what was it called? Beyond the Gates of Sleep. Mm-hmm. And I finished the scenario with 11 XP with only 10 Doom on the agenda, which I was quite proud of. So
go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer.
Like, I opened up the map, like when you get the bunch of different locations. You know, when you get to the bottom of the stairs. Mm-hmm. And I only had 2.
Enter the woods.
Yeah, I only had 4 Doom on the agenda. Yeah. So like in 3 turns, I got to the bottom, and then it was just like, okay, time to farm XP, and then yeah. So I could have actually done the not stray from the path, but we'll see. Anyways, that's been my Arkham.
So go check those videos out on our YouTube if you haven't already. Like I said, they're pretty short compared to our normal games, so they're pretty low commitment, and the last 20 minutes are they're something to behold.
Yeah, they're oof. If you like train wrecks.
Yeah. Nick, what you been playing?
I went back to my Tommy and Norman hard Circle Undone campaign, and I did my 2 least favorite scenarios in that campaign, being the Secret Name and Wages of Sin. Secret Name was rough. I think I came out with like 3 experience, so I think I just banked it. I was like, I'm not even going to spend it on anything right now. I just want to keep playing. Went into Wages of Sin, and I did not get a single heretic in that one. So I'm like, great.
Oh,
At
wow.
least it's done. But to be not to be, but the Tommy
Thanks,
build.
Hamlet.
Yeah, I'm to be or not to be. The Tommy build that I almost said the Hamlet build. Thanks, Sean. The Tommy build that I'm running is pretty bad, because I was like, I'm just gonna do a bunch of weapon upgrades and a bunch of weapon fetch, and just get Becky out and slam it full of upgrades, and just, go to town. And I did. In Wages of Sin, I got Becky out with Reliable, with the one that bounces it back to hand, and with the Scope. And it was awful.
Okay.
Like, totally not worth it. Well maintained. Yes, thank you, network.
I don't know if anyone's ever made a scoped shotgun work.
The shotgun, well, in a 4-player game, I think it would have been a little bit better. But yeah, in this 2-player game, he just needed to be more mobile. And because I had the scope on it, it was like, I don't want to go over there yet, because then I can't hit the things that are over there. So yeah, not great. So I think I might pull a Sean and adjust my build mid-campaign.
Hey, I resemble that statement.
Yeah. But also, this is my first time playing on hard in a while, so this is like the scenarios that I already have a hard time with, they just were even worse. So, oof. Other than that, I really haven't played much Arkham. Norman is fun. He's interesting. He's different. I constantly forget that the card on the top of his deck costs 1 fewer resource when you play it. Also, speaking of like not reading the investigator all the way, I didn't realize until just the other day that Tommy shuffles the asset back into his deck.
Oh my god,
What?
Nick.
I've been throwing them into the discard pile. So, halfway through Wages of Sin, I was like, wait a minute, this should be in the deck, this should be in the deck. Like, I pulled like 8 assets out of my discard pile and shuffled them all back into my deck. So, oh man.
Dude, I don't know if you know this, but if you can hook Tommy up with card draw, he becomes fucking insane for that reason.
Yeah. God, what can he even get for card draw? Like Guardian
A
Survivor?
partner who's running card draw for him.
Yeah, well, like, right,
Yeah.
Norman's gonna have to get Cryptic Research or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he doesn't have access to many good options on his own.
No. So yeah, that's me.
Cool. Ian, how about you?
Well, the first thing is actually got to play some in-person multiplayer. There's a meetup in somewhat local area. It's kind of a drive for me. But got to play with friend of the show Casey and some other folks up in at the Games of Berkeley store. And we played in Egypt, Guardians of the Abyss, and lost.
Is that in Berkeley?
Again. Is what, in Berkeley, Egypt?
Yeah.
So I think me and Casey have a standing promise that we're never going to play the Egypt scenarios again because
They are rough.
and especially when we play at that location, it's like the last time we played, the exact same thing happened, which was in that scenario, it has one of those cultist tokens where you have to reveal another token, and if you fail, bad things happen. So kind of 2 years in a row, we got a cultist into a tentacle, which basically ended the game. So, yeah. No more Egypt! So, I was playing Tony in that as kind of a first dry test run for potentially using him in Iron Man later this year. And so, I have some good ideas about how to add some stuff, because he was rocking like double-digit resources throughout the game, and I just didn't have enough to spend on. But I think actually some cards that just came out in this most recent pack in Where the Gods Dwell are going to give me some stuff to spend resources on. So, and I've actually been experimenting with a couple of decks and playing some standalone. I've actually been playing Excelsior a lot because that's kind of my go-to testing quest these days. And I also built an Agnes deck recently. And I think it's kind of along the lines you were saying, Sean, but there's some cards that I threw in that I'm not sure if you used. Like, I've really been thinking about how to use Empower Self recently.
I've been wondering after that one, too. Have you found it to be a worthwhile include?
Well, given a very small sample size so far, yes. So the idea is this is like an Agnes kind of melee weapon deck, so I'm not using spells to do damage, but it's either Fire Axe or Meat Cleaver, whichever she draws first. And Empower Self to boost up her combat, and also for intellect. 6 Sense handling the investigation, obviously. And then I kind of did a little bit of a kind of unorthodox ally setup. Peter, of course, is standard, but I have Charisma, and then I have Jessica Hyde, so it's kind of the Hyde-Peter combo. And the nice thing about that is, like,
She's fucking invincible.
Yes, and one of the things with Agnes is, like, a lot of times you kind of want to leave an enemy to go into the enemy phase so that you can get that extra like ping of damage, since it's limited to once per phase with her ability. But sometimes you run into damage trouble. But with Jessica and Peter, like, she's just ultra tanking enemies and getting that extra damage out. And between Blood Pack and Empower Self and the combat boost from Jessica Hyde, she's not doing too bad in the combat stat. So that actually worked out pretty well.
Do you find it more cumbersome to set up than like your standard Mystic kit? Because like starting with 5 willpower is a decent place to start with that.
Right. I think there's a few more pieces in place, yes. But I'd say maybe not so much cumbersome as I worry about the consistency. Because, like, Empower Self, there's only one of, let's say, the combat boosting one. And
those are rituals, right? They're not actually spells.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention, too. Yeah, they're rituals, so you can't even grab them with, like, spell grabby, spell fetch effects. I think there's other stuff in the deck that can kind of help with that combat aspect. But... yeah, I think I just need to make tweaks to the deck to kind of help with that consistency. But I'll say that I've had a lot of fun with the deck. I think it's fun, like, conceptualizing this, like, Agnes who's not killing people with spells, but she's basically using magic to make her, like, herself super strong and and kill people with these melee weapons. And so that for initial play I did of Excelsior, she actually did really well. And was able to handle enemies, and because I had Sixth Sense in there, the upgraded one, like, she was passing every investigate test like no problem. So
God, that's a good card.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting build. Like, obviously there's other mystics, like, say, a Diana, who maybe in Power Self could do some interesting things, but I think Agnes is worth giving a look to in Power Self because of just the kind of damage output she can do with her ability.
I'm glad that you used that, or that you brought up Empower Self, because that was one I was looking at for Norman, but I just wanted the intellect one. I didn't want the other two.
Sure.
And I was like, damn it, I kind of wish I could get 2 copies of that rather than one of each. You know what I mean? So I didn't ended up not including it, but at the same time I was just like, man, like, I thought I knew where I would use that, and then I ended up not, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an interesting card.
It is.
And, like, if you just, like, look at it itself and its effect, you go, like, oh, maybe this is an off-class Mystic card. But it's 3 XP, isn't it?
No, it's 2.
Is it 2? Okay.
It's 2, yeah, and then you get the...
Okay, so there's that at least.
I think that's where it lives, is off-class, like, primarily, other than this niche case that Ian found. I say niche because I didn't think of it. That's not what niche means.
Yeah, it's interesting because it has, like, 2 effects, like the kind of the weird one that lets you ignore the clause of a card that's having you use willpower instead of another stat. I could see a use for that, especially in off class. But then the second part that just boosts a stat is just kind of generally useful, especially for Agnes. Like, the intellect boost was super useful in my play because there are certain, location or other effects that aren't investigates. They're just raw intellect test, and she'd be kind of screwed without some kind of boost. So, yeah, I think the big downside of Empower Self is just no great way to fetch them or search for them.
I expect that and I guess this might change if a new investigator comes out, but for most investigators that you're going to take it, like Nick said, there's probably going to be one that you really want, and maybe the other 2 are sometimes useful. So yeah, that makes it tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need like a Miss Doyle, but for Empower Self.
Something,
like a
some
stick
kind
to
of
the
ritual
plan, but
master.
for ritual cards.
Or
Yeah.
that, yeah. Man, like level 5 Arcane Initiate, have it dig like 9 cards and pull spells and rituals. That'd be fun.
Gotta sacrifice something to it.
Yeah.
Still in my heart.
And the other one, I'll talk about it more next time to not take up too much time, but I've been playing with Finn, my favorite investigator, and Haste in Borrowed Time, and it's so much fun.
Okay.
The Flash.
Well, I'll be excited to hear about that. Okay, cool. So the other thing I meant to mention up front, we actually have gotten a couple comments from people who maybe we aren't as clear about this as we could have been in the past, but I just want to throw it out there that we record all of our episodes live in our Discord, and literally anyone who's joined our Discord is welcome to come join. So if that's of interest to you, come join our Discord. It's discord.me/mythosbusters. If you have trouble with it, just shoot us an email and we can toss you an invite. But we announce when we're going to record about as far ahead of time as we can, which is usually
1
day.
to 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. 15 minutes sometimes.
We
Yeah.
do toss a notification out there to everyone once we start. So if you're able to join, then you can hop in. Just wanted to toss that out there. Ian, what patron news have we?
Well,
What's going on in the old Mythos Busters offices?
Well, first off, thanks to our 13 board members. That's Chris B, Chris H, and Chris U, our conglomeration of Chris's. Morton, Jared, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Dave, Abilio, Nathan, Chad, and Robert. Thanks so much for your huge support of the show and letting us do everything we do. And a special shout out to a random patron this time around is Sebastian Tupper. Thanks, Sebastian, for your support as well. Other patron stuff, make sure you go visit mythosmerch.com, which is our very own merch site where you can buy hats and coffee mugs and all kinds of merch. More merch than you could ever imagine that we'd have available. It's probably there. And we have unlocked our most recent goal, which was patron exclusive merch. So look for more info on that soon, where we will reveal the special merch that will be available to patrons. And we are creeping slowly, not so slowly, towards our next goal, which will be one or more of the Mythos Busters hosts getting a Mythos related tattoo. So I know everyone is waiting with bated breath for that.
We are real close to that. And the other thing to point out is that we are, I have some general concepts of what we're looking at getting, but we are going to put it to a vote. So patrons are going to have some input, and we're also going to live stream at least my part of it. Ian, I don't know if you're able to get anything going on your end, but there'll be some audience participation that goes with this tattoo.
Yeah, I'll see.
So if that seems like a laugh to you, consider tossing in. It should be a fun time.
Yeah. It'll be a limited vote, so you can't vote for Bodie McBoatface or something, but...
Yeah. Just dick butt, but with tentacles.
But yes, there will definitely
Scott,
be
did you see my list of possible ideas?
Yeah. Whoops.
It'll just be Skids pinup style.
Worst ideas.
Tasteful koi nude of Skids.
I'm down with it.
Paint me like one of your Arkham girls.
All right.
Oh my god.
And Dissonant Voices is our ongoing project where we record using our lovely voices the campaign text of various campaigns. We're currently working on Dream Eaters. We have the Dream Eaters box and the Search for Gaddoth up on our patron page, as this is a project that's available to our patrons. And Sean,
and I'm in the middle of Thousand Shapes of Horror, so ideally by the time this episode releases, and depending on how quickly whoever edits it, it should be up. So
awesome,
forthcoming.
Okay, so that'll be coming, and we are hard at work at some of the other campaigns as well. Let's see what else. We have a brand new job title. This is kind of a more recent position we've been in need of, but very important. So Thomas Anderson is going to be occupying the position of Hotel Excelsior balcony inspector, making sure those railings are up to code and
we've had some troubling reports lately.
Yeah, have to file those legal forms for recent disappearances.
Excelsior valets have said that they've noticed some people falling.
Yeah, we've gone through like 5 inspectors at this point. No one knows where they keep going.
Perhaps over the railing. Who knows?
Oh shit, you think so?
Ignore that unsightly pile of bodies outside the window. And final note, this is not necessarily Patreon related, but just general listener related, which is, it's March, but Gen Con is going to come up sooner than everyone thinks, including us. And so just keep in mind, we will be having our special listener event as always. And so we will let you know more details when that becomes available soon.
Excellent. So moving on from there, and I guess, I'm kind of doing this in a disjointed way, so apologies for that. But the other thing I wanted to mention kind of on a housekeeping level is that we have kind of expanded our offerings for venues. So obviously, if you're listening to this now, you've probably found us on your preferred venue, but we are available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and all other cast apps that can be connected to an RSS feed. So if you've got a preferred venue and you're not listening to us on it yet, chances are we're on it now, so go check it out. All right, moving on from there. Ian, news.
I'll take over news today and every day
Nick,
from
news.
here. In an effort to prevent Ian from handing off to Ian on more future episodes, I figured I would take over news for him. The only thing, it's been a relatively news light since last recording, so the only thing really that we have now...
Yeah, we only have olds.
Yeah, just the olds. And this one, semi-new, new to you, is there's a new product announcement on March 19th at twitch.tv/ffglive. There was some confusion because there's also an Arkham 3rd Edition announcement, but that's on the 10th, so, I mean, I guess watch that one if you're interested. But the real juicy stuff is on March 19th for this brand new product.
We've already conjectured what we think it might be, so we'll be interested to see what that ends up being. I still am holding out hope that they just forgot that they already announced Arkham Horror.
Why would you? No, why would you hope for that?
Because it would be hilarious.
It would be pretty funny, infuriating but funny.
Perhaps infuriating.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love
It was
drones.
so
Okay.
bad you got Scott to not like it.
Oh no, I liked it. That's just me.
He likes
got a
the
thoughtful-
pain. He's
No,
a strong
It wasn't.
masochist.
It wasn't Scott that tipped me off on how bad it was. It was that I got a thoughtful from Ian. I know it was cringeworthy then. All right. So moving on to today's. No, wait. We got one more. We got some rules. Scott, what you got?
All right. So, because no rules update, I said I was going to do funny little things that are interesting in the rules. So, have you guys heard of this card, Mr. Rook? He's this okay.
Is that an Arkham card?
ally.
Yeah, I think I've heard of
Yeah.
it.
He's the
Okay.
current target of a lot of hate for people who think that things should be tabooed when they don't really need it.
Tabooed into the ground. Yeah. So this has nothing to do with his taboo worthiness or unworthiness. But he has a very interesting interaction with one of my favorite weaknesses, which is Through the Gates, which is the one where it's draw the top card of your deck. If it's not a weakness, remove it from the game. And then you search your deck and discard pile it everywhere for the other copy of that card, or any other copies, right? So the way Mr. Rook works when you exhaust him, and let's say you're searching through 9 cards, and if there's at least one weakness among the searched cards, you draw one of them as well. So what happens when you draw Through the Gates? What actually happens is Draw the Gates goes off, and because you're searching the top 9 cards of your deck, you will actually know what card Through the Gates will hit. However, because the way Mr. Rook is written, when you search the top 3, 6, or 9 cards of your deck, then you choose a card and draw it. When you see Through the Gates, if you pick the top card of that 9 to draw, then Through the Gates will hit the second one. Does that make sense?
You can save a card.
Yes, and if you're Mandy, let's say you're looking down through 9 and picking 2 cards, that means you can pick like the top 3 cards and basically pick of those 3 which one Through the Gates is going to hit. Because you could choose to pick the first one and the second one, and then Through the Gates would actually hit the third one while you're resolving Mr. Rook. So you can actually play around it, which I think is just the coolest interaction ever. So,
Well, that does it. Rook OP.
that's the tipping point for you?
Yep. That's
So-
that's the gate that broke the camel's back.
Oh god. He's gone through the gate towards the graveyard. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Anyways,
Abandoned
I thought
ship.
that was really cool.
Abandoned ship.
Yeah.
Joke.exe has stopped. Port. All right, cool. Well, God, Rook is cool. You know what, guys? And on that point, I think a discerning listener might remember that, oh god, probably about 10 episodes ago, it was very soon after Mr. Rook came out, and before Milan got, it was like right after Milan got tabooed, like right around that area. Someone on this podcast said that, you know what, I think Rook, even in his normal form, and even in Milan's pre-taboo form, Rook is generally a better ally, and I stand by that. And I think the balance of the universe meets that out.
Mm-hmm. Turns out consistency is kind of good in a card game.
Who knew? All right, so then moving on to our main topic for the night. Nick, this was your brainchild, yeah?
No. Well, it was kind of a synthesis of, I think someone ask you, Scott, to talk about something like this? Or was it Ian?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I suggested the original topic, which was just
right.
best and worst investigators for each campaign.
Mm-hmm. And then Scott was like, I don't know, like we kind of tossed around a little bit. And then I was like, well, what if we go where we discuss who's in the box, and then maybe some general strategies for that campaign. And then we discuss the real meat of the subject is whether or not the people who are in the box are the best options for the strategies of that particular campaign. So it's kind of like a mix between Ian's original thought and then Scott and I kind of just like tossing around a little bit.
So let's dive in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So with everyone's starting point, Knight of the Zealot.
Mm-hmm.
The core set comes with Roland, Daisy, Skids, Agnes, and Wendy. So are we talking from a pure solo perspective here? Or are we talking about like 2-player combos? Like what? How far do we want to span?
I just think everything, like their abilities and how they fit in the campaign.
I mean, if we get as noodly as, well, in solo, this guy's best, but in 2-player, then I think you're just narrowing it down to who's the best solo investigator, who's the best 2-player, that sort of thing.
Oh,
where
I can do a fair bit of noodling.
Well, that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I think that if we just discuss I think if we look at what is this campaign trying to do to you, and which investigators are the best at countering that, would be probably where this discussion is going to have the most fruitful results.
So let's go there. So of the ones that come in, does any of them, do any of them jump out to you guys as kind of the best, most consistent matchup?
I think they all have very straightforward strengths and weaknesses, and I think like Roland, Daisy, Skids, Agnes, Wendy, for the intro product Knight of the Zealot, like they all just kind of fit, right? Like Roland's a guy who shoots things and can get a couple clues. Daisy gets a lot of clues. You know what I mean? Like it's very straightforward. So I think they're actually pretty good for their campaign, and their deck building is, I don't want to say easy, but I mean it's straightforward, right? It's not like the Dunwich 1 Gators who have 5 cards from anything, or other decks that have, the other investigators that have weirder deck building stuff, like Finn, he can take 5 Survivor and or Seeker cards, or Ursula with relics and such like that. So I think they're good intro investigators. Fisher Price, my first investigators.
I think Roland is... Yeah, I agree with that I think they each bring something to the table. Maybe depending on whether you're doing solo versus multiplayer. But Roland is definitely strong just because of... we'll get to in a little bit, like, what does the Knight of the Zealot actually do to you? But one of the things is, like, we've talked about it before on the podcast, is it asks for a very fast pace from you. And Roland just has that natural action compression, so I think that's one of the reasons I always think of Roland as a good Knight of the Zealot pick.
And he's just got access to the 2 classes that are like best at doing the 2 different things that you, like, kind of the main 2 bases you have to cover.
The 2 progression areas of the game. Yeah, and he has those. Yeah. And also like Knight of the Zealot, because it's the intro campaign, it really just kind of goes play Arkham, and if you can play Arkham, you will be good at Knight of the Zealot, with a couple of small exceptions. So really, like, on the subject of, is there anyone better than those 5 for Knight of the Zealot? I think for the most part, you can pretty much play whoever you want, for the most part.
I think, okay, so kind of rounding back to what does this campaign particularly ask of you, it is pretty vanilla. I do think there are some kind of landmark challenges that still stick out. So I think particularly in Midnight Masks, that one is still just, it's kind of the first one where it's like, hey, do as much as you can. And if you really want to shoot for the moon on that one, you need a lot of mobility.
Yeah.
And otherwise action compression. Otherwise you are just going to not even get close to getting, 3 cultists. So to that end, Scott, I think you mentioned Ursula already. I think of the newer investigators, she's a pretty decent one, simply because Midnight Masks, particularly probably solo, that this is an untested theory, I feel like she'd be pretty good at it.
Well, I mean, she gets clues, and she gets a bonus when she moves, and there's lots of moving in Midnight Masks, so yeah, seems like a good, a good guess.
Rita would also be great, because she could leave a lot of those enemies in the dust and just beeline to the nearest cultist and then move on.
Yeah, and I haven't played him through Night of the Zealot, but my boy Finn, I think just for how fast he can go in a Midnight Mass, I'd be curious about how many cultists I could rack up. And I know there's Frozen in Fear in that, but that's the same for Skids. It's pretty much the same problem, but I think Finn could go fast enough that it would be interesting.
And you know what, the big in Devour Below, when all the cultists come out, the ones that you didn't get, when they come out in the middle, having someone with survivor access, so you can utilize the skill card from the core that allows you to evade a bunch of people.
Survival instinct.
There we go. Just having access to that, or God, I'm terrible with names today. The survivor event, pay 5, evade all enemies.
Cunning
at location.
distraction.
Thank you.
Turkey throw.
Yeah, turkey throw. Those 2 cards alone help you get over that big bump. So
or track shoes. The funny thing is, back when the core came out, that was such a choke point. There were a few possibilities, like you mentioned, cutting distraction and
Dynamite.
Cat Burglar.
Dynamite Blast.
Cat Burglar was a core card, right? Am I remembering correctly?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But now that I feel like there's a ton of tools to get through that that choke point of cultists.
Yeah, God, the many a campaign have ended on that path when the cultists hop out. So I'm trying to think who Ashcan's probably a decent one for Knight of the Zealot, particularly solo, just because he's kind of so well rounded. I don't know that anyone in particular really sticks out, since this campaign is kind of so generally vanilla.
Yeah, I'd say more on the end of who's bad at this campaign is, I think, particularly solo. Anyone who takes a long time to get set up is going to struggle on Midnight Mass and Devour Below. Got to go fast.
Yeah, those ones just go once they get started. Holy cow! Even now. All right. So kind of wrapping this one up then. So as far as the returns, I suppose we should touch on those for the campaigns that have them. I think as far as Return to the Night of the Zealot goes, Return to the Gathering just becomes a real boy scenario.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think the challenges it presents really changes.
No. It still asks the same things of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Midnight Masks gets harder.
Yes.
The cultists get trickier and harder to deal. The acolytes, the ones that replace the acolytes, get thicker and farther away, which just makes them so much more difficult to deal with, particularly in solo. I feel like Return to Midnight Masks in true solo is rough.
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
Backbreaking.
And then I think I've only played it twice to my mind, so maybe I'm wrong. But Return to Devourer, I think, changes the least. Probably, is that fair to say?
I remember it having the fewest replacement cards, so that tracks.
I think Devourer is still Devourer, which is like very swingy.
Yes.
And that hasn't changed really with the return version.
Oh man, I was just thinking about it. You know who'd be really good in Zealot? Luke.
Oh God,
Just
yes.
hopping all over the place.
I think though, going on a limb here, Luke would not be a good intro investigator.
No.
If you're learning how to play Arkham, don't play Luke. Like that.
Maybe
is
don't
just,
play the investigator that causes the most rules questions of any investigator.
Yeah.
But if you're teaching Arkham, give everyone else like Roland and Daisy, and then you play Luke.
yeah,
Because he takes big maps and turns them into 3 locations effectively.
yeah. Oh God.
Okay, so any final thoughts on best investigators for Nazi?
I kind of have to say what Ian said is you can pretty much bring anyone to Night of the Zealot.
Yeah, there's really no bad choice.
No. Maybe Lola.
I was just going to say, Lola's probably
because
the
Lola.
great choice.
You don't have to qualify that for me. Yeah, okay, so then moving to Dunwich. So Dunwich Legacy brought us the Dunwich Splash Gator. So we've got your Zoes, we got your Rexes, your Jennies, your Jims, and your Dukes. I'd say in general, all of these investigators are pretty well matched for Dunwich. I think Ashcan in particular stands out in my memory.
Rex.
Rex. Even post Taboo, Rex is still great.
Yes.
Because Dunwich does, I think, and this is just shooting from the hip here, I haven't done the legwork on this, I think Dunwich has the most 2 per clues of locations of any campaign. That check with your guys' recollection?
It does have a lot.
Yeah.
Now that you mention that, I'm like, oh yeah, that campaign is like nothing but 2 2 clue locations.
There's a lot of them. So Rex, I think, is pretty solid. So as far as what the campaign itself requires, it's got a lot of big enemies.
That your damage output has to be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid conglomeration of spheres.
Spheres, yeah, and is it the Lurker or whatever the other one in that set is? He's a pretty beefy
Servant of the Lurker.
Servant of the Lurker, yep. And then that one whole scenario where it's all just like 5 huge enemies. That
Undimensioned Unseen.
yeah,
Yeah. But that one you're using like weird willpower powder.
you can, yeah.
You know?
Like, well, you have to, yeah. And it also
Yeah.
also requires movement as well. But there's still I think Dunwich requires more consistent damage than any of the other campaigns so far. Consistent.
Also, direct damage tricks for your
Yeah.
whippoorwills.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Find that
I
to
think,
be particularly useful, especially in solo.
Yeah. I think like Agnes would be really good to replace Jim in this one, just because of her ability to ping off damage for whippoorwills.
Yeah, Jim, I think when it released, I think Jim was probably in the weakest state out of the 5 from this box.
I'd agree.
I think he's come a long way since then, and I think he can handle Dunwich probably pretty well at this point. But yeah, Agnes would be a good replacement.
I even venture, and this kind of seems odd. I would actually put Mark as a really good guardian. I realize that it tries to mill your deck this campaign, and Mark tends to draw cards, but also Mark has such a huge health pool that. I mean, when we
I've
played
taken a
Dunwich
Beyond
Iron
the Veil
Man,
on the face with Mark and survived
yeah,
it, so.
exactly. Yeah, and you only took like 2 damage actually on Mark.
Yeah, can confirm.
which then drew you more cards. So, yeah. So I like Mark, but he'd be risky because he only has 5 sanity as well.
Yeah. But this doesn't
I'd say
test
that's probably-
sanity as much. Go ahead.
Well, no, I totally agree. I think just calling that out, Scott, I think maybe that is probably one of the bigger like specific tricks to this campaign that you need to consider. Is the Beyond the Veil mill mechanic. because it can kill most investigators if it does hit you. So
Yeah.
don't play Patrice, as I once learned. I told you guys that story where like I drew my Deny Existence the turn before my deck ran out.
Oh no.
And watched it go away, and then drew back and then got smoked. So I think as far as investigators that you'd want to play in this one, I'm trying to think of some of the tech we have, particularly to block that damage. Does every class have a decent answer? I don't think every class does.
I mean, Seeker. What does Seeker have for damage soak?
Yeah,
Not much.
or just in general, the
Like
ability
reduction.
to reshuffle your deck.
Or the
something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So like Quantum Flux. Anyone who can take Quantum Flux,
Right.
that's a decent counter.
Or you just play double versatile 50 card Mandy. So you have a 60 card deck and you just never worry about running out of cards.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. He draws a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Is Seeker the one? Because Guardian has Delay the Inevitable. Survivor has like quite a few options.
Yeah.
Devil's Luck.
Rogue
Ridiculous, is it?
has Cheat Death.
Does Mystic? Oh yeah, Deny Existence.
Yeah.
Deny Existence and Quantum Flux.
Yeah. I think it's just Seekers.
Yeah, Seekers are in the hardest spot for this. But at the same
And they have
time,
the lowest health, so...
But at the same time, Beyond the Veil, like, I think the times that you're going to draw it and also be threatened by it the same time that you draw it are going to be relatively slim. Like, usually this is going to hit table and you have a couple turns, maybe a lot of turns before it becomes a real issue. So at least it's something that you can kind of play around most of the time. Like, you can be like, okay, it just hit table. I have like 7 cards left in my deck. So if I draw through, or no, it triggers once you run out. So never mind. I was going to say if you draw through, or maybe if you know you're getting low and you haven't seen it yet, draw through your deck first and hopefully
That's my
you'll get
favorite game to play in Dunwich. It's like, oh god, I have 5 cards left and I haven't seen Beyond the Veil yet.
Yeah.
Draw!
I guess Seekers have forewarned to cancel it, but not to necessarily stop it.
I forgot that existed.
Yeah.
But it is there.
The look when we were playing the was it the Keeper game with Matt and the adversarial one, and I had forewarned in my min deck, and when I canceled a treachery that Jeremy gave to me with forewarned, he like there's this look in his eye like forewarned exists. Oh yeah, like it was just like who plays that?
I'm pretty
card?
sure I heard him say no fan-made cards.
yeah.
Oh, I know what I was trying to think. I know I've used something as Tech and Seeker, and it's Malison. That's what I was trying to think of.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, sure. And I'm looking at the Seekers. A fair few of them can take the off-class solutions that we were talking about.
Right,
Daisy,
yeah.
Daisy and Norman could ward or deny. Rex, same. Like
Min has
Mandy,
Survivor
same.
Has
stuff.
Guardian.
Joe could take some of the Guardian solutions. Like most of them have access to an option. So
Yeah.
I think it'd just be Ursula probably that can't. I think it's just Ursula.
yeah, and she goes so fast that if you need to, it's fine.
Yeah, you can just end the scenario by winning. Yeah.
Just be done.
Oh, you're gonna mill me? Too bad. The game's over. Yeah.
What was that? Was it Scott? Was it extracurricular activity where Ursula solo ended that in like 7 turns?
Jesus Christ.
It was 6 turns actually,
Oh, my God.
and the entire stream was like with the intro, like me talking, like the intro, and then like the sign out and stuff. It was 18 minutes. Like it was just. And I think there was actually like 14 minutes of gameplay, and it was 6 turns, cleared out
God.
extracurricular activity. And I was
We've
like,
had
all
cold opens longer than that.
right. Yeah.
I think the main thing sometimes I think about for Dunwich is just like a certain scenario, which is Undimensioned and Unseen and Willpower. So I think... I'm not sure if that scenario is enough because of how the campaign works to say you can't play a low will investigator, but it's kind of one of the few scenarios I can think of in this game where if your stat is a certain way, like low, that you kind of just write the whole scenario off to a certain extent.
Ooh,
It's like
ooh,
don't play Finn.
Seeker has
Yeah.
otherworld codex to address beyond the veil.
True.
Oh, that's I suppose so.
So all of you who are yelling at your headphones, I'm sorry, I robbed you of it. We got there. So as far as like other curveballs this one throws you, like we can't not mention Essex.
That whole scenario.
Yeah.
I think this campaign more than any other has the most scenarios that are just like, you just have to deal with what this scenario demands of you. And it's hard for, like, because you got Essex, Where Doom Awaits, Undimensioned Unseen, all three of those, like, ask very specific things of you. And it's not stuff that was telegraphed by the campaign prior to that. So,
yeah, I
it's
kind of
just like,
feel
just
like
deal.
Dunwich is the most, like...
Unforgiving?
No, not necessarily, but
like
it's the...
they're throwing Arkham at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah, it's the most, like, tech... friendly campaign, in that like you're teching for these specific scenarios more so than I think any other campaign, where most other campaigns you got a strategy for your deck and you kind of run through it. Obviously you have to know how to play certain scenarios, but Dunwich, it's like, yeah, you have these weird like museums doing something strange, Essex is asking for something totally different than that, and then Undimensioned Unseen is a curveball, and Where Doom Awaits it has a weird thing. Like, it's, I don't know, there's all these weird specific questions that Dunwich asks.
And then they have this, like, they have multiple scenarios where it's like you gotta fly through these locations quickly and move from one to the next. And then the last one is like, no, you gotta dig for those locations, man. You don't get them. You gotta work for them. So it really is just like a kaleidoscope of Arkham.
So to that end, do we think there are any investigators in particular that can answer all of those specific challenges better than others? I think high willpower in general, like, I know this is a pretty general rule for Arkham, but I think in Dunwich specifically, high willpower gets you more.
Yeah.
Well, I think too that like Dunwich was in that point of the game where, you know, it was pretty new and it felt like a lot of the encounter cards dealt with willpower, right? And we've seen a deviation from that, and now it seems like encounter decks are a little more varied with what stat they're checking, but Dunwich feels like it really asks you to have decent willpower. And honestly, like, for Seeker-wise, and this might be my answer every time, but Ursula, like, I mean, you're moving so much, right? It makes train easy. It makes oh my goodness, Blood on the Altar. You know what I mean? Like, she moves and gets clues in. And yeah, like Dunwich has some decently sized maps too, and so any kind of movement trick is really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna say for rogues, I think, and I have not tried her in this campaign, but I think Safina might actually be a good pull. She's got the high will, and based on what we just talked about, she's a super toolboxy investigator with all those events that she can bank, which could give you a lot of potential answers to different situations that pop up.
She'd have a hard time with Where Doom Awaits, though. That would be a bit of a gate for her to hard investigate those locations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, now she has access to Empower Self, so she can get Acuity or whatever that one is. Like, that's a nice little... Problem is, it's only one card in your deck. Like, that's the sucky part. But
yeah. At least she has a better chance to draw it than a lot of investigators in opening hand, but yeah.
Preston might be actually kind of interesting.
I mean, all the Mystics are pretty decent in Dunwich, I'd say. Probably Marie's going to be your best one. Just thinking about general tricks and Where Doom Awaits. I feel like Marie's probably your best Mystic.
Anyone with a high starting intellect.
Yeah, I mean, right?
Yeah.
yeah, we mentioned Mark for Guardians. He's good just because he can get that +2 to anything, which is really nice. You just gotta be careful with the card draw. And I think Roland is still a good get because, like we said, you want high damage, and Roland rewards you for high damage by sucking up clues. So that action compression is really good. Other than those, I thought Zoe was a pretty good... Like, I think she fits this campaign pretty well, for the most part, like, coming from this box. So
Yeah. in multiplayer at least.
Yes.
All right. So as far as the return to Dunwich goes, there are some. I'd say that Return to Dunwich, in my opinion, is the return that I've played so far that makes the most quality changes. There's probably a better way to put that.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it necessarily changes what your challenges are too much outside of. Well, Essex is still Essex. It just kind of changes.
Gives you a little more lead-in time.
Yeah. But what it does do is it does fix the Where Doom Awaits problem. So there's that.
Yeah. I find
removes that one hard gate.
I find solo Museum and solo Essex a lot tougher in the return version than vanilla Dunwich. So, but yeah, I guess it doesn't substantially change what you're doing. It just means you better be a lot better at it than. So it's maybe weeding out some of the weaker investigators solo.
It's Dunwich now with added boss.
Yeah.
Okay. So final thoughts on who's best and not best for this cycle aside from Patrice?
Yeah, who would you not take into here?
I would argue Finn, actually.
You think so?
I think like just that one willpower is just I don't want to say backbreaking, but because it seems Dunwich also uses a lot of the core set encounter cards too. Like Frozen in Fear is in like half of the scenarios, and losing an action every single turn essentially is painful. And that low willpower, like like how do you do Undimensioned and Unseen?
You just resign.
With Finn.
You just resign.
Yeah, like honestly, right? Like you
save
that's
2
your
guts
first
for
action.
1 attack, and then you resign.
Yeah, I think you basically get 1 brood as your goal, and then you resign.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Probably
try it
Preston is in a similar boat.
But yeah, I think I would agree even as a Finn fanboy. But I think there's a lot of scenarios he would do well at, like Essex, but Finn boy.
Yeah.
I think Finn boys are coming in the Innsmouth cycle.
Oh boy.
Yeah, like I'm not saying Finn's bad. Like I really enjoy Finn. He's a great solo investigator, and just a good all arounder too. But in Dunwich specifically, I think that one willpower just hurts too much.
Yeah, I would definitely say this cycle is his worst matchup out of all the cycles for sure.
Yes.
So Sean mentioned Preston, and I think we kind of talked over him. How do we feel about Preston in this?
I feel like Preston's in about the same boat as Finn.
I would imagine so. Like, he has tools to get around, obviously having, ones and everything, but those tools are ultimately temporary, or they're not always something that you can plan on, and this is going to be hitting Will almost every time you draw an encounter card. So
And I find with like Sean, you mentioned there's so many 2 clue locations, or 2 per, that a lot of Preston's clue getting tricks, like he just runs out of gas, right? Like there's only so many Gravedigger Shovel, there's only so many intel reports, and then now you're stuck with 1 intellect, right? Until you upgrade into something, and if you're doing Streetwise, it's like 8 XP with Taboo. Yeah, I mean, I think he does good in, the 1B scenario where you have to gamble.
House always
wins.
House always wins.
Oh
because
yeah,
because
because
so
you
money.
just pay for everything.
Yeah.
Mr.
He walks out
Moneybags.
owning the place.
Yeah.
I bought the club. Yeah.
So he's good there, and then just I would say he probably goes downhill.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see some problems like in the latter part.
So moving it on into the path to Carcosa. So the home investigators here are, of course, Lola, Mark, Min, Safina, Akachi, and Yorick. So of the home team, oh man, I'm looking at these.
Min was great.
Yeah, maybe Min is one of the better ones out of that pack.
Yorick was decent. I remember Yorick being decent.
Safina
Akachi
did really
was
well
all
for
right.
me.
Yeah, I think Min was probably the strongest out of the box, I would argue. But I think that overall everyone was pretty good, other than Lola.
I think Mark's stumbling block here is that Carcosa puts so much pressure on your horror,
Yes, yeah.
or your, you know what I mean?
oh,
Like,
it's
it's
Intellect,
just,
yeah.
yeah, your sanity. Sorry, not horror, but like he only has 5, and his weakness will like it can just end your day. So, I think he's actually not a great, like he's got great damage output, but he'd probably not be my pick for best one
Right.
for
I
Carcosa.
would agree.
I would say, like, out of the box, I struggled with York solo, but that was before a lot of the cards that have come out since to help with intellect. But the reason why is because I think Carcosa, if you average it out, probably has the highest shroud locations. And so in solo,
that seems right.
it was a little bit of a uphill climb. But I think Survivor's gotten quite a few tools since then.
Well, Survivor's gotten a lot of auto clue
Yeah.
tech. Yeah.
Anyone in the home clutch do you think is particularly not suited? Aside from Lola?
This is a beat up Lola
Yeah.
episode.
Poor
Just kidding.
Lola.
That's all the episodes.
Oh god, I want to love Lola
I
so
know.
much.
I was
I
so
want to
into her
love
when
her.
she came out. Ugh.
I honestly think Mark is not
Yeah.
super great for this. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
And like you said, Ian, like a lot of high shrouds, and he's intellect too. And yeah, like you have Scene of the Crime, but it's just
Yeah,
that's it.
it's a one-time
And he's
thing.
so delicate. He's so delicate horror wise. So I'd probably
fragile,
replace him with
fragile
somebody.
Mark.
Yeah. Fits with the story. Right? He's got the shell shock. So
Yeah, I think if you want to run a Guardian in Carcosa, you bring Carolyn.
yeah,
7/7.
she's probably.
access to Seeker and Mystic. I think she's your bet.
I think Zoe is actually a really good one for Carcosa.
Sure.
Because she's got that. She's got a little bit more sanity.
Well, one.
Yeah, but her weakness doesn't hit her on the horror, and she's got high willpower
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So she's got a lot of defenses against a lot of the issues. Low intellect though, so but she can also, like with her 5-card splash, she can put in some pretty awesome clue tech like Sixth Sense. Or
Sure,
whatever.
but the one thing that I remember, like, I think I played Carcosa before anyone else out of the hosts, and I'm pretty sure I remember saying, like, after playing Curtain Call, like, bring book, like, bring intellect, because this scenario demands it. And even though Zoe has access to cards that can get her clues, I think that 2 intellect is going to slow her down pretty significantly in Curtain Call, at least, if not beyond that. So...
You know who'd also and sorry Nick, you know who's going to be bad in this? I think, is Roland. Because he's got the 5 sanity, and if his weakness, like if you start piling up mental trauma,
Yeah, that's rough.
ugh,
I did play
yeah.
him solo Carcosa. I don't remember him being terrible, but I do remember that was when I discovered the whole, like, and I say that because, like, I'm sure it existed before this, but Malison, prep sketches, inquiring mind sort of build where it's throw the clue back on the, because there's a treachery that attaches to a location and it adds, does it add clues? I can't remember what it is, but there's
adds Doom, Spires of Carcosa,
yeah, it adds doom, but
and you can intellect, you can investigate, and instead of getting a clue, you can take a Doom off.
yeah, I think
one?
so. I think that might be it. But there was some weird interaction that I discovered at some point that I was like, ooh, Roland actually kind of works with this. And then that was when I redid the deck to like throw clues back down to then power himself up. I don't remember him being terrible, but I do remember that the 5 sanity was an issue. So
So moving beyond the home clutch of investigators, anyone we think is particularly well placed in Carcosa has come out since then? I would argue for Norman. I think Norman's got a really good spread
Yeah,
of
sure.
abilities and cards for this one.
I would argue if you really know how to min max and play her well, Agnes.
oh yeah,
Yep.
yep. I mentioned Carolyn. I still think that she's a really good hit for this one. I played Leo in Iron Man, and he was decent, but that was also a 4-player game with optimized decks. So, but I mean, he was still okay. He had soaks. I mean, that was the whole point, was get those allies out and soak that damage and horror. So,
I think even though Carcosa put some pressure on willpower and horror, it actually is a good fit from my experience for a lot of the evade investigators. Like Finn and Skids, actually, because of a lot of the scenarios in Carcosa have big maps. Not as much Hunter as Dunwich or some of the other campaigns. And so I found Carcosa pretty friendly to a strategy of just like evade stuff and keep it moving and don't worry about killing everything in sight. So I think any of those type of investigators can do pretty well.
I think Rogues too, with having adaptable. Carcosa is one of those campaigns where you can adaptable in some, I don't want to say silver bullets, but like fine clothes for the dinner party. You know, just all of a sudden makes that scenario way easier.
Well, and even for curtain call for if you would otherwise have problems with poltergeist.
Yeah. And then, but there's some scenarios where there's like no parlay or whatever. So like I feel like anyone who can take off-class rogue or at least level 1 rogue is probably a little bit better for Carcosa, just as a general thing.
yeah.
And you know what? While we're talking, also Jim Culver, I think he.
Oh yeah.
This is the first time we had it where we had 3 skulls in the bag,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So he had 3 more zeros in the bag than anyone else, which is
that kind of
pretty
that's
awesome.
kind of important. Yeah.
And to that point, I think, least of the campaigns that we have, Carcosa is the most interesting one for like specific targeted token play, because in most scenarios you're going to have skulls and one other bad stuff token. So things like your counter spells or your probably Defiance is a decent example of those get a little bit stronger. Yeah, so I do think Mystics in general are pretty okay in Carcosa. All right, so we've touched on, you know, the specific intellect. Any other kind of specific tricks that anyone would need to account for in Carcosa that you guys can think of?
Honestly, there's a lot of parlaying.
Yeah.
So bring fine clothes. Like I honestly, like, if you ask me what's the best investigator for Carcosa, it's like whoever can take fine clothes. Scott, that's everyone. Yes. Like
Lola it is.
yeah.
Duly noted.
I feel like we might be saying his name a lot, but because this is a big map campaign, Luke again is another one who can just like where Unspeakable Oath or any of these big map scenarios, he can just zip around.
Or, what's the
Phantom of Truth.
Phantom of Truth? Oh my God, he would just. Oh, I want to play that now.
Especially if it's the one where the organist is chasing you.
Yes.
Like, fuck off.
Yep,
Luke's
see ya.
just like, I'm here. And now I'm here. Oh, God.
He wouldn't be as busted in Pallid Mask just because you have to build the map for that one.
Sure.
But late game Pallid Mask, he'd be able to pull some stuff out.
Yeah, when you're like kiting a bunch of enemies around.
We're trying to get back to the exit. Like,
Yeah.
okay, Bamf, I'm there now. Haha.
Yeah.
God, Luke
And
is
Jesse
really,
mentions in the
really good,
chat.
guys. I don't know
I
if we
need to do a
mentioned this.
He's my
Carcosa run
favorite
now.
mystic.
He's really, really good.
And Jesse mentions in the chat too, like Luke almost trivializes Oath.
Right.
Because like once you do your stuff in the basement, you're just like, all right, and I just essentially skip over 5 locations. And
Good thing I put those
save
open
2
gates on the locations I need. Just pop, pop,
Yeah.
pop.
Yeah. Save 2 turns worth of moving with 1 action. Yeah.
God. All right. So then, kind of moving to Return, I would, much like, or in the opposite direction of Dunwich, I guess, I would argue that the Return made the fewest impacts on how this one plays.
Carcos is amazing, and why would you need to change anything?
Oh,
Yeah.
there is that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also haven't played it as much as the other 2 returns, but yeah,
Right.
from what I can remember, I don't think it changes anything major.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember Oath having another curveball thrown in, like after you get Daniel or after you find him. I remember that there's a couple of other, like either there's a new enemy or there's a new task that you have to accomplish.
I think it's both.
Yeah, no, it depends on if you're conviction or doubt.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But yeah, but other than that, I don't remember a whole lot of like playing Hidden King, or is it the Hidden King? Is that the name of it? The second Last King. What's the name of the second
King.
series? The Last King. Yeah, that one I remember being harder.
Yeah,
A lot harder.
because
Diana,
what's her name?
Diane Devine actually became like a
my
huge
God.
threat in that.
Yes. From being like something you could largely ignore, or like you could pretty much determine what's going to happen with her. Like now she's holy cow.
Yeah, and Jesse's mentioning in chat also the hidden treacheries that deal a lot of damage and horror too. I think Carcosa can kind of, I feel like, tax you a lot for sanity, but I think the return amps that up even more, and then adds some damage to it too. So I don't know, maybe someone like Tommy could be interesting for all his tanky capabilities of just seeing how much of that he can just keep soaking.
All right. God, I'm just, yeah. So I guess final thoughts on best/worst.
I would also argue, you know what, for a best is anyone with action compression built in, just because those hidden cards take actions to get rid of. If you can make your other actions that turn more efficient, then you're more better off.
Because in vanilla Carcosa, those suckers are insidious. Because you can get it earlier in the scenario and be like, I'm fine. And then you toward the end of the scenario, you draw into your third one, and you're like, I can't do anything anymore.
Things are not fine. Things are not fine.
So yeah, for sure, anyone who can spare the actions to actually just get rid of those as they come in is going to do better.
I'd say pretty much our team for Iron Man that year is because we curb stopped that campaign so hard.
Oh my god!
It was
insane.
Safina, Yorick,
Leo,
Daisy,
and
Daisy.
Leo.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it
it
was a
seemed,
solid set.
it seemed like every scenario there'd be one person who was struggling to get set up or was having trouble with something, and the other three were still able to just maintain, and not only maintain but like make significant progress, even being essentially short a character. I think we all had a scenario.
We maintained.
Exactly. That. God. Force
I
those
did
show
my
titles.
25%.
That was Dunwich.
25%. Lola. Oh, Lola.
Yeah.
Okay, so then moving to the Forgotten Age. This one I think is going to probably be one of the more interesting discussions we have.
Oh boy.
So the home team for the Forgotten Age, you've got Leo Anderson, Ursula, Finn, Mateo, and Calvin. Out of this clutch, I'd personally point to Ursula and Finn.
Yeah, both of those are super good for Forgotten Age.
I mean, Leo's great too, as long as you're not trying to evade everything.
As long as you don't mind vengeance.
Yeah, as long as you want a 20 vengeance campaign, Leo is your guy.
Yeah.
Wait, didn't your Leo 25 vengeance Leo campaign immediately die in Depths of Yacht?
Oh yeah, it was like turn 3. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, Forgotten Age really feels like for agility or GTFO. You know,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's not only like we always say that it's the evading campaign, but at the same time, this is also where alert showed up, and it has the highest count of alert. So not only is evading the way to go, but you need to succeed on the evasion test too. Like you can't just try Like you can't just try and evade 3 times in your turn or twice in your turn. Like you need to get it that first time, or you need to have auto evades ready to go.
I'm really going to throw out that I think Rita might be one of the best investigators to take.
Yeah, real good.
That tracks.
Yeah,
That track
and
shoes.
honestly,
yeah.
yeah. And you know what? Like, there's just so many tricks that also Survivor has, where it's like, when something spawns on you, you can move away. Like, there's all these Or is that a rogue card?
That's
What am I
you're
thinking
thinking of bait and switch, I think, which
Yes.
is rogue. No, wait, bait
Yeah.
and switch is survivor. Think on
Bait
your
and
feet.
switch is
yeah.
Survivor. Yep, think on your feet.
I don't know. I don't use
Yeah.
either of them, so
But I think, like, yeah, abilities like that are really strong in Forgotten Age. Just a weird enemy management.
Yeah.
So whoever can do that would be good.
yeah. Because you want decent damage output, and I think that was smart of us in Iron Man to avoid like a straight up killer investigator, and instead have everybody kind of be able to do some damage other than Ursula, and also be able to avoid the enemies we want to avoid. That's really like, I think Forgotten Age requires the most finesse when it comes to handling enemies and the ability to pivot between like noping them or completely destroying them.
Jesse brings up in chat hiding spot
Sure.
and survival instinct level 2. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and on the agility tip too, it's not just the evading, but also this campaign probably wins the award for most treacheries that test agility.
Yeah.
So that also plays a part there too.
Yeah, so you either need that high agility or soak. Lots of damage soak.
Yeah, or I'd say just cancels in general for this campaign because of the explore deck. Like you're getting hit with more treacheries than you would normally. So
I think action compression, as important as it always is in solo, is doubly important in true solo Forgotten Age for that reason.
Yeah, God, explore.
because you have to waste so many actions exploring.
Glad we're quote unquote done with explore.
Yeah, we'll see what
I
Return
liked
does.
Explorer.
I liked it in the Depths of Yarp, but I didn't like it in or Yeps of Doth, but I didn't like it in every other scenario. I think it was good. I think the treacheries in it were the super rough. Like that was like you get robbed of your action and you get an additional encounter card draw. Like that was it was too punishing, I think. But yeah.
So I'll throw out for a bad investigator, Norman. Because he's got 2 combat, 1 agility, and he doesn't, like... There's not a lot of awesome tricks he has for dealing with enemies
Sure.
that isn't just...
Just bog standard mystic.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not really... You know...
Yeah, I think he can run out of juice faster than others. Because he's going to rely on charge spells, or... Is there an evasion spell that doesn't use charges, like an asset?
Suggestion, kind of.
Can he take that?
Yeah,
He
that's
can't
rogue,
take
though.
that.
No, that's rogue.
Oh, sorry, I was just answering the question.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Out
I
of
could
context.
I could see Norman having trouble in Forgotten Age for sure.
All right. I'm trying to think. So we've already kind of touched on some of the specific pitfalls of this campaign. So you've got vengeance. You have to address that one way or the other and be a little bit deliberate about it, I feel.
Yeah.
Poison is kind of a thing. I mean,
It's worse
how
in
you
some
address-
scenarios than others. Like,
yeah.
there's some spots where it's really going to be a problem, and there's other spots where you can just be like, I can ignore it for now.
Well, I think the fact that it can really stress your health.
Yeah.
Taking someone like Daisy might be... Because she's got 2 agility and she's only got 5 health. Like, that might be... Your low health investigators you got to be a little careful with, I think. Because there's just so much trauma dealt out that going from 5 to 4 to 3 at the start of a scenario can be painful, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the inverse of Carcosa in that way, with like Carcosa's the low sanity investigators, and Forgotten Age is
Yeah.
endangering the low health investigators.
Yeah. Which oddly enough makes Calvin a very interesting choice. Because you're like, trauma, sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think Calvin's always a very interesting choice.
I got him up to Boundary Beyond, and that was where I tapped out of my solo Calvin TFA run.
Oof. Yeah, solo might be.
It was bad.
Yeah. He's also I just find him super fun.
He is very fun.
Yeah.
I think one of the other, I guess, curveballs this one throws you is dealing with City of Archives and the fact that for one scenario, your deck, its construction really has to take into account playing in a completely different way from the normal game.
It almost works not straight against you, but for some investigators, it really could work against you. Like ones like Luke specifically. If you're teching your deck for a certain thing and then you lose that ability to play events at opposite locations, that's gonna suck. And
Yeah.
and then would your gate box get shuffled into your deck at the beginning of the game, or would the Yithian replace after that? Technically,
I believe it could because Duke goes in your deck too.
oh wait, no, yeah, unique assets they don't.
Yeah,
they're
you
just
remove all
removed.
your
Yep,
things. Yep.
never mind.
Oh yeah. Oh, is Gatebox
Gate box is unique.
unique?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Matt saw him coming.
So yeah, that one can really.
Yeah.
And then if you do poorly in City of Archives, you could be that for the rest of the last two scenarios of the campaign.
At best,
Right.
you could just die.
True.
Yeah.
I mean but that's
You know
always an
who-
option.
True.
I think one of the best enemy management investigators you could take into TFA, I'm going to say, and especially talking about City of Archives, is maybe Silas Marsh.
Oh
because
yeah. Oh yeah.
He has the damage output that you need because you're not doing like a whole lot, right? But we got to kill some things. He can do that. He's got the evasion to evade. He's got all those survivor tricks for moving enemies or like hiding spot, whatever. And then also usually you build your deck around the icons and a bunch of skill cards. So when you hit City of Archives,
You're set.
your deck's you're still pretty good. Like, yeah. So, J. Paul in the chat. Preston is powered up in the City of Archives.
He's 100% better.
Yeah, he doubles his stats.
Also, all of the favor events are really good in Archives, so that's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right. So we don't have Return to talk about yet. Hopefully, in the future, we'll be able to talk about how much better Explore feels in Return. So any other final thoughts on your bests and your worsts?
We haven't
Finn's
talked.
great.
Yeah, we haven't talked about her yet, but I think Windy probably for similar reasons as like some of the other Vady investigators, but also because it could just be my traumatized memory, but I feel like Forgotten Age has a lot of bad token effects, so her token redraw could be handy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and especially like if you're what do you call it, forging your own path, and you're able to redraw those elder things, like once you get like the really bad ones.
Some of those are like -5 on standard.
Yeah, they're terrible. Like
And then there is
-5.
just the -5 on standard.
Right. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree. Wendy's. Yeah.
Wendy's always good, though.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Who knew? As far as the Mystic Clutch goes, I honestly, and this is not just me saying this, I think Diana's kind of at the front of the pack just because she's got so many ways to target, cancel, and counter the specific bad things that are going to happen.
Yeah,
I think in TFA that's pretty important.
She's tied for the Mystic highest evade
Also that.
at 3.
At 3.
Yeah. Goodness, I'm just looking through the Mystic list. I'm like, wow.
They almost
You
all
either
have 3 evade.
Or 2. Yeah. Oh, wow. They're almost all 3. Except for
I
Jim.
think just Jim, right?
Think so.
Everyone else is at least out of 3, or is out of 3.
Yeah. And you know what? 3 is workable. I think we've talked about that before. Like, 3 you can do something with, right? Like a 3 in a stat is something not dependable, but if you have to do something, it's not super painful to do so.
I'd say in general, your problematic enemies, the evade values tend not to be as high. So, starting at a 3 and having a couple icons to chuck is a decent place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Guardian access for Diana, like in addition to all the other cancels, but just being able to like dodge a snake that's about to come bite you and poison you, or delaying the inevitable, those kind of things. Yeah, I think she's definitely.
Oh god, and all the like she makes cancels better, and cancels are just so strong in TFA because wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
God,
Diana's the best.
in Iron Man, there was I can't remember which scenario it was. I think it might have been the last one. I think I tanked / canceled like 12 damage for between just taking enemies and canceling treacheries. It was a damn thing.
I think I just looked at this person too. Who was it for Guardian? Oh, Tommy. Tommy with his soak is pretty good. I think he would be pretty good. I haven't played him in TFA. I also think Mark would be pretty good because he gets that +2. I think that just that +2 whenever you want is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that his ability to mitigate damage would be very useful in TFA. So
I would tend to
I'd agree with that. He's the only investigator I have lost off the crumbling precipice, though. So,
Which is funny because you think with that ability he'd be like one of the best ones to hit those tests.
yeah, it just takes one tentacle.
yeah.
That's
Yep,
true.
that's what did it.
Oh God.
Yeah, 5 up on the strength check because and
And that's why you play Wendy.
that was that. Yeah, I totally got Hotel Excelsior.
I was about to say no one draws 2 tentacles in a row.
Yeah.
Okay then. So then moving on to the Circle Undone. This one's particularly interesting. So the home clutch of investigators, you've got Carolyn, Joe, Preston, Diana and Marie, and Rita. So as far as the best matchup on this one goes, Marie's pretty solid.
Yes, Marie's good.
Marie's pretty solid in general, but
Rita can be quite good. Like there's a lot of big enemies. Like you just evading them is nice. Like a lot of the witches.
Yeah.
Right. Like if there's an evade or an exhausted witch at location, you can get rid of all those treacheries and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Diana's pretty great in this one as well, just because there are. I mean, you can say this about any campaign, but I think TCU and probably TFA are probably the biggest examples of it. Is there are just very specific things you want to not have happen to you in every scenario.
And Diana is that gatekeeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Diana's the gate. Diana is the key.
Yes.
You know the one I'm kind of unsure about. Like he did okay. Is Joe Solo?
I agree.
And the reason why is because Circle Undone's another kind of high willpower type campaign. Although there are a lot of treacheries that let you kind of circumvent that if you can evade someone. But guess what? Joe's not great at evading either.
Yeah.
So the thing that Circle Undone does is just flood your threat area with all these cards. And like there's the one treachery I remember I got hit with. This is my blind run. Here's my blind run that you can't use actions on your items. Like, okay, here's my useless gun here.
Just
so
tears apart his build.
Yeah.
Oh, bedeviled.
Bedeviled, yeah.
Yeah, there's that clutch of treacheries in the. I can't remember which set it is, but that all. Oh God! Like there's racked and bedeviled, and if you can evade a witch at your location, they're easier to get rid of. But beyond that, it's like get willpower or get fucked.
Yeah, I remember Solo Joe was the first campaign I tried when I got TCU. He was the first one I did because I was the most excited to try him. And I remember it being particularly punishing because he requires a lot of setup, and B, his special trait, like the thing that Joe does, is his hunch deck, and you can't rely on that. And I think that was part of my problem, was that I put events in there that I knew to be good, but they were also events that required specific conditions, or that sort of, so like preposterous sketches or crack the case. and it just ended up not being like. Now I know better. I have a better idea how to run Joe, but that initial experience really cooled me on him as an investigator,
Like,
especially for this campaign.
yeah, that's the thing is, like, I've had success with solo Joe, but in other campaigns, I'm just saying that I don't know if Circle Undone is his best matchup necessarily.
Right. I agree.
I think for rogues, I think Safina is really good. Because she can evade and a lot of the witch stuff, and she's got that willpower to back it up, and she's got the access to cancels. The other rogue that I found when I was playing solo that is just like the highs are highs and the lows are lows is Finn. Like, he's really good. He's evading, and he can get the clues and everything like that, and he's got damage output when he needs it. But his willpower sucks. But you can kind of sometimes get around that with the evade because of the evaded witches and the treacheries and stuff like that. But other times, like I said, when the highs are high, they're good, but the lows are very, very low. So he's like just a feast or famine, I find, for TCU.
So, I know we've already touched on it a bit, but I just want to call out, what do you think are the particular curveballs this campaign throws you? So, hi, Will.
Yeah, and just being able to handle your threat area in general, whether that's canceling or whatever, because I think TCU fills up your threat area more than any other campaign has.
I think if you're really trying to ace the campaign, longevity is really important, because holy fuck, Secret Name requires it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well,
That's kind of why I feel Preston is probably not the greatest, because I find Preston decks run out of gas.
oh yeah.
And that's my big issue with Preston. Like,
They do, yeah.
he's good, and then it's just like engine sputters.
We need some sort of asset version of Money Talks, I think, to make him more consistent.
Yeah.
And Jesse points it out in the chat here, and this is something that I definitely wanted to talk about as we start planning Iron Man. I think TCU in multiplayer is the flex campaign, because there are several instances where you are separated and have to completely fend for yourself in this campaign. And there's even instances where, like, if basically each investigator can't help with clue gathering, you're not going to get to advance.
Yeah.
So I feel like in particular this one will reward investigators that, or not reward, it just won't punish investigators that can flex.
Yeah, and that's true also, like, because this is kind of specific, but I've had Iron Man on my mind, as you do, months in advance.
As you do.
But I feel like this is the toughest final scenario of any of the final scenarios so far before the Black Throne.
Yes.
And part of the reason is, especially in solo, how luck dependent it is. But I'm just thinking about in multiplayer. I guess what I'm getting at is kind of your point about the flex investigators, is that I think the best way to tackle that is everyone better be able to handle themselves, because everyone's going to have to split up to opposite sides of the map to handle that scenario to give the best chance. And so that means everyone better be able to kind of handle both clue getting and combat, at least to some extent.
God, I forgot that before the Black Throne was a thing.
No, we're just all contemplating Black Throne.
I've yet to test the theory, but I would posit that it's going to be less intense in 4-player, particularly if we all go somewhat flex, because then you can spread out and it doesn't become such a game of chance as to whether you pick the right direction to go search.
Sure.
But, you know.
Well,
it's
I'm
still
playing
gonna be hard.
Carolyn, so she'll be good.
Double
at
dynamite
clues.
blast, baby.
Yeah.
Stick to the dynamite.
Yeah. Is Rita just really good for this campaign? Because when you have to do the circle tests, especially the big one at the end, she's got one extra stat. And she has a total of 13 instead of 12.
Oh, does she?
And
I always forget that.
yeah.
Yeah, she's
And
like
Preston is
3, 2, 3,
terrible
5.
at the circle tests. Yeah.
My wife and I started TCU playing Rita and Preston, and wow, was that a roller coaster. Because, like, one requires a lot of setup, and the other one, like, they both require a lot of setup, but, like, for different things almost. So if we ever had a scenario like we did particularly with Wages of Sin, where we just could not get our wheels under us, or our track shoes, or our money, it was just a bad... Like, I've never seen two investigators struggle to do basic tasks. Oh.
It's like you took Finn Edwards and cut him in half into two investigators, and you get
Yeah.
Each Finn only spells it with one N.
yeah. That to me is what I think of a Rita or Preston campaign.
Yeah.
It's just two half Finns.
Like, I had my heart set on playing Preston, and I was like, pick one of these investigators, and she's like, Rita. I'm like, oh, damn it. Okay, fine, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. We really talked Seekers outside of Joe being kind of bad. I think Min and Norman probably stand at the head of the pack. Maybe Daisy.
Yeah, I mean, because, well, Norman and Daisy have good willpowers
Well, they have
and
mystic
ways to
access
boost them.
as well, so they have cancels.
Yeah, that's the big thing. They have the cancels. And Min has that access to cancels as well, though not as great as the mystic ones, but they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Ursula. The encounter deck can't hurt you if it has to catch up.
Yeah. Well, she's got that high evade, right, and decent willpower, so...
Yeah, Sonic the Investigator over here. I'm going back and forth constantly on who I should play for Iron Man. Like, I wanted to say... I wanted to do Agnes. Like, I wanted to do Agnes because I haven't done Agnes yet in Iron Man, but then I think about the type of Agnes deck that I want to build, and 4-player, I'm like, oh god, Dark Memory is just going to be rough in this campaign.
Agnes is great. Like, Carolyn and Agnes go great together. It's chocolate and peanut butter, man.
And that was my thought, but oh god, Dark Memory, it's just...
So who else are you thinking?
I'm kind of leaning Akachi at the moment.
Oh, I like Akachi. She's one of my favorite mystics. I like the boring mystics other than Luke.
And then I get to use my my Orbits tokens that have the tattoo symbol on them, and that just makes me happy.
Yeah, that's motivation by itself.
You know what? Like, I say that half as a joke, but it's half not.
Yeah.
All right, so any final thoughts on your bests and worsts for this cycle for TCU?
I mean, we kind of discussed it. Any other ones that are particularly bad that you should avoid for TCU? Let's go that route.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of just as a general rule, your low willpower ones are going to be rough. I debated Silas, but I don't
He's
know.
a 2, right? 2 will?
Yeah.
2, yeah.
Yorick, what's Yorick for will? Is he 3?
He's
3.
a 3.
That's not terrible.
Yeah. I think York would be okay.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Circle and Done is, like, you can't... Like, I've done okay just taking everything on the chin, and you have a flooded threat area, like, say, with Preston. That's not ideal, but I don't know if it's necessarily as punishing as, say, like, Low Will and Dunwich, for example. I don't know, it's weird. I also feel like I'm still trying to get a handle on Circle and Done. Like, I feel like I know Dunwich and TFA and Carcosa like the back of my hand, but I'm still trying to, like, get the pulse of Circle and Done and figure out what really makes it tick.
I still don't remember a thing of Clutches in Chaos, or Clutches of Chaos, or whatever it's called. Like, nothing.
Or its name, even.
I remember the key art. I remember the art on the pack, and that's literally all I remember from that entire scenario. So, yeah, I agree. Circle Undone is an enigma at this point.
Yeah. I think I'll know better in a couple months.
I'm halfway through replaying that campaign again, and I still don't know that I know it a whole lot better. So it's an interesting beast.
I also get the sense that Circle... I would have to go back through the resolutions and check, but I have the sense that Circle Undone isn't quite as unforgiving in its resolutions as some other scenarios. Like I think you get a little bit of leeway for failure. So I'm thinking
yeah.
I'm thinking about someone like Calvin who really can ride the line sometimes, and maybe this is a place for him to shine since he won't get punished if he falls over the line.
TCU did seem like the campaign where while I was playing, I was like, this is garbage. This is terrible. I can't believe... And then you read the resolution, you're like, oh, I guess I didn't do that poorly. So...
Yeah, I would definitely agree. There were a couple times where I thought I had just like completely screwed the pooch.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quite so bad. All right. So, it's not quite done yet, but I still think it's worth talking about because it's pretty close to done. So the Dream Eaters. So your home investigators are going to be your Tommy, your Mandy, your Tony, your Luke, and your Patrice. I have no idea where I want to go with best for this one. I have favorites.
Luke is for sure up there.
Yeah,
Luke is great.
Well, and I think there's two separate campaigns
so
too. That's the thing.
You kind of have to separate it into the waking and dream side.
Yeah.
I'd say Luke is great in the dream because there are so many. In particular, the dream has so many, like the veiled trait. I think. Well, of course, Web of Dreams has that too, with Point of No Return. So those ones where you have veiled locations and Luke can just hop anywhere that's revealed on the map, like it's pretty nuts.
Well, I can name one investigator who's good on Dream Eaters, and that's Zoe. The cash register for all the swarm.
Yeah, Zoe's cross just makes... Zoe's ability just... Yeah. Like, this enemy engages me, and I grab 5 resources. or if you're on the moon, it's like, 8. I grab 9 resources. Yeah.
Here, have some
This army of cats, they all have dollar bills in their mouths.
Yeah. I think any investigator that's got decent agility is going to do well on the dream side because of all that swarming.
Sure.
So, I mean, yeah. Rita.
Finn has done well so far, really well.
Wendy's ability doesn't work on the infestation bag, does it?
No.
Okay. Specifically, it says chaos token.
Yeah, okay. Damn.
And that is an infestation token.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm having a hard time kind of thinking about, aside from Swarm, and I think maybe just general mobility, I'm having a hard time thinking about like really specific curveballs that this campaign throws at you.
Yeah, well, because the campaigns are only 4 scenarios, they're really like it's harder to pin that down. I mean, Veiled is kind of a new thing, but also it isn't because I guess like Dim Carcosa essentially had Veiled on a lot of its locations. It just didn't have the keyword. So it's not like we're really dealing with... I feel like in Dream Eaters we're not dealing with anything too terribly new other than Swarm and 2 campaigns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like one of its big things, which we've seen before, but I'm thinking about some of the scenarios, is just a lot of unfolding maps, like go here and this opens a map, and then go here and it's opening a new part of the map, and I don't know if that necessarily leads to any particular investigator being better or worse, but...
Northern Lights over Arkham in chat brings up Myriad and Bonded, which are both very new and very exciting, but those are also, like, that's player cards. Like, you don't see that stuff on the encounter stuff, so the scenarios aren't going to interact or force you or require you to play Myriad and or Bonded cards. So,
Casey mentions this in chat, and I was just going to mention this as well. Ursula, I would actually play Jake in this campaign.
yeah.
And that game I was telling you about, the Beyond the Gates of Sleep, I played Jake first turn, and I think I drew 9 or 10 cards in the game off of Jake. Like, it was just... Every turn, I was drawing an extra card with Jake, so...
Beyond the Jakes of Sleep.
Yep. Yeah, and I think, like, enemy management-wise, you're either going to need someone with really good agility, if you're going to go the evasion route, and other agility tricks.
Or AoE.
Or you need... AoE, or some serious damage output. Like, your DPS has to be huge, because those enemies get... Swarming just makes them just get... obscenely big,
which means that Dynamite is just as good against a Swarm 3 or a Swarm 8 or Storm of Spirits. You know?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those are anyone who can access those 2 cards are valuable
Yeah.
and pay
Or
for
the
them.
grenades.
So
the grenades.
Diana.
Yeah.
Am I gonna be playing Diana in another Iron Man? Okay,
Yeah, right.
you convinced me.
Well, I mean, she'd be pretty good enemy management on the Dream side, right? Like, she's just like nuke locations from orbit level good. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. God. I mean, yeah, we've got Swarm. I'm trying like. It's actually kind of annoying me that I can't think of any other specific challenges this one throws at
I just
you.
think that's how this is. I think it's because it's 2 different campaigns that the focus, like, we don't have as many scenarios for a single campaign to be like, what's the scenarios? And the gimmicks, quote unquote, in Dream Eaters tend to be more in how you navigate the map?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Yeah,
And
I would
I-
agree. It's kind of exploration by exploring.
Yeah. And I would say also, like, the tricks, a lot of them are in interludes, like how the 2 campaigns
Yeah.
act together
Yeah.
is a lot of like what's changes this. But it feels like the scenarios are really kind of bread and butter Arkham scenarios. You know what I mean? Like, and there's slight twists, like we mentioned, but they're pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
More or less to this point. Like, it's not like there's some crazy weird thing. The crazy weird thing is the interlocking campaign, which doesn't make a huge difference for your choice of investigator.
Right.
Right.
I would throw out there, and I'll see if you guys agree with me, that these campaigns have some of the more impactful treacheries that hop out onto locations and into play. So your investigators who can deal with that. Oh, what do we have?
Alter Fate.
Just alter fate, or cancels, I guess.
Other World Codex.
yeah, other world
Yeah.
codex.
There we go. Yep, that's the other one I was trying to.
So
think
who
of.
would you not bring into Dream Eaters?
Hmm.
Lola? Yeah, I think just Lola.
Well, I mean, yeah.
When is she gonna get a scenario? Like, when is she gonna get a scenario where she's the choice?
She did. It was City of Archives.
Yeah.
Casey says
I-
Calvin
I-
for campaign. Not take Calvin for campaign.
A side for Dream.
I guess.
Oh,
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I
because
suppose,
he's not going to
yeah.
get any damage or horror to get anything done in the first part.
Yeah. Yeah. He would.
So there's
He'd
that.
just be He'd be stuck in the room with the 2 guardians, just like looking at him, like, "All right, can one of you just hit me? Just hit me."
I think there is the one location that does damage to you, the fire or something. So he's just like sitting
Oh, that's
there,
true, yeah.
like
So he'd be hulking out, but
just
he wouldn't be able
jumps
to
into
pass
the
the
fire.
tests.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's really there's not really a absolutely no go
Right.
investigator for these campaigns.
Yeah.
I say campaigns because they're 2, but
I know.
Yeah.
I should have worded this as like the cycle and not the campaign in this show notes.
Yeah.
But oh well.
I would have to
Yeah,
look
we
at
get
the XP totals overall. Like, I know each scenario gives you more XP in general, but because it's shorter, you're probably capping out at a lower XP, I imagine. So maybe not a particular investigator, but a particular investigator build. If you're really counting on getting a lot of high XP pieces, then that
Yeah,
might
you
be
probably
an
want
issue.
to plan. You want to plan your deck to be able to operate at like 20-ish XP,
Right.
because
Sure.
you're not going to play long beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah.
and that kind of makes the Seeker side quest upgrades weaker
Sure.
because like even if you get them in the first scenario, then you only get them for 3 scenarios, and if it's the Ancient Stones, max you're gonna have them for 2 scenarios. But I also think at the same rate that also makes the Survivor Exile cards more powerful because you have to buy them less often just because you're playing less scenarios.
That tracks.
And you get a boatload of XP, and so you like spend half of it on your exile cards and then other half on your deck, and survivors don't take that much XP to get like
Yeah.
up and running, right? Like, yeah, Like I have an Ashcan deck that I'm like, sweet, if you give me, what is it, 1, 2, 5 experience, I'm like, all right, that's my final form. So
Yeah, it also makes me think this is kind of going off investigators, but then I wonder if it makes you kind of rethink those like single copy exceptionals that cost an arm and a leg, because you kind of count in a longer campaign that it'll balance out because you'll have more chances to draw it. But if you're looking at like 2 scenarios that you have, like what are the odds you're going to get like your XP's worth out of it?
Yeah.
They're low.
yeah.
All right. Well, we might want to revisit this one shortly after the campaigns actually end.
Yeah.
But I think I don't see our opinions wildly changing unless the last 2 scenarios really have something interesting going on.
Yeah.
I'm excited for a Clockwork Spider and how it just rotates.
That'll be really interesting. Okay, cool. Well, fun topic. Obviously, listeners, if you have different opinions, let us know. So, guys, let's move it on into a little bit of tentacle time. Scott, what has been grabbing you lately?
So I'm still addicted to Ring Fit. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm nearing the end game. I'm on world 21 of 23. But I've also heard, like, once you kind of beat it, you then go through, like, New Game Plus.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
And you beat it again.
I also heard that you're a Ring Fit pusher now.
I am a Ring Fit pusher, yeah. Like, there's... I think between myself and there's a couple others who had Ring Fit and just, like, talking about how awesome it is, how fun it is. Like, tons of people on the Discord have went like, okay, fine, I'll go get Ring Fit. Like, wow, this really is great. So yeah, and the other day I was like, okay, because it tracks how many calories you burn, and I'm like, and I had the day off, and I was home alone. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try and burn 1,000 calories playing this game. And it took me a very long time. Like, I think it was like 3.5 hours by the time I did it.
Wow.
Of like real world time. But I was like taking breaks and everything like that because it's a lot of effort.
Leave it to
but
Scott
it caps
to
out.
min-max.
Yeah, exactly.
But it caps out at 999.99 calories. So I actually couldn't hit 1,000 calories. I was so pissed. So yeah, I'm not going to try that again.
Maybe if you do it a second time, it'll learn its lesson.
Yeah. I don't think it was expecting people to burn 1,000 calories in one session. The other thing I have been watching is Downton Abbey. My wife got me hooked on this show, and I absolutely love it. It's very I love period pieces. So if you ever watched The Crown on Netflix about Queen Elizabeth II, like, I love early to mid 1900s period pieces, especially about the UK for some reason.
Very specific.
And I know. And Downton Abbey just, oh man, it's a really good drama. So I like my dramas.
Have you seen The King's Speech?
Yes.
I love that movie.
Love it. Yeah. Like, that's what I love. Like, if you love The King's Speech, I think you would love Downton, and it's called The Crown on Netflix.
I keep seeing The Crown and thinking, like, I should watch it, but I haven't.
Oh, you should. Yeah. So if you're interested in early 1900s UK pieces, Downton and The Crown, there you go.
Downton and the Crown sounds like a really fun sitcom.
Or a pub.
Ooh, I'd drink there.
It's like the Downton and Crown, or the Crown and Downton.
Ian, what you got going on?
Oh, 2 things. The first is, ever since the expansion for Journeys in Middle-earth was announced, I've made it my mission to actually play through the existing campaigns. And so I finished the first campaign that comes in the with the game. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mentioned before on the cast how it was like, this time around things are really clicking and I'm really loving the game. But my duo of Gimli and Beravor were doing really well. Only lost one mission quest. I can't remember what they're called, scenarios, throughout the campaign. But then I made it to the end, and they lost in the last campaign. And I was really like, oh my god, because it's like 13, 14 scenarios long. Like, I just put however many weeks into this. I do not want to go back and have to do it again. Like, it's very disheartening, which I love the game, but I think that's one of the probably the one major weakness is that it doesn't let you replay scenarios. So if you fail, it's like, okay, I guess you got to play through 13 and 14 again, which I like the game, but that's kind of asking a lot of time commitment.
I don't 13 to 14 like that.
Yeah. Yes. So, not willing to be discouraged, I looked into the save files for the game, and I figured out how to edit the save files to restart that last scenario. And so I did some Captain Kirk reprogramming the Kobayashi Maru. Trek fans will know the reference. And I reprogrammed it so I could restart that scenario, and this time around I won. So yeah, campaign 1 is in the books and done. And I can play the DLC campaign now to get ready for the expansion coming out. So, and the other thing is, second thing is I broke out Eldritch Horror for the first time in a long time. Because
right, that's a game.
Yeah, I had a little hunch about something. And after playing through the past couple nights, I think my hunch is true. And I'm going to make a statement that I think you guys will probably disagree with me. But I like Eldritch Horror better than Arkham 3rd Edition. I like it a lot more than Arkham 3rd Edition.
Disagree. Okay.
I haven't played enough of Arkham 3rd to agree or disagree.
I will say that the Arkham 3rd has fewer things about it that I don't like than Eldritch.
Sure.
But those things are really strong.
Sure.
Like with Eldritch, it just comes down to there's a lot of little things I don't like about Eldritch, and they all combine to make a generally not great experience for me, like what I prefer out of games. Whereas Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, I'm usually like, this is great, everything's great, and a fucking headline card comes out, and now I'm dead, and I couldn't do a thing about it. Like, that's usually what Arkham 3rd is for me, so...
Yeah, like the thing is, I wouldn't go so far to say that like it's objectively better,
Sure.
because I think there are things that Arkham 3rd does, like say the setup time that are better, and I like the codex cards and the story it tells. But I guess from what I'm looking in that particular type of game in the niche in my collection, Eldritch does those things for me better than Arkham 3rd, and I guess I don't want to spend too long on this because this could be a whole topic, but I guess the two big things for me is one, I'm trying to think of how to put this. I feel like Eldritch Horror is more of like an unfolding sandboxy type experience, where you're going around the world and these kind of like very random things that can happen to you that string together into kind of a story that you can tell. Whereas Arkham 3rd, I think, is a very kind of defined story because of the codex cards and what's happening, which is cool. But I almost feel, I think one of the issues for me is I feel like Arkham 3rd shares so much of the DNA of the LCG that when I'm playing it, I'm like, I kind of just want to tear this down and play the LCG. Whereas Eldritch Horror is like something completely different. And I guess my other thing is my turns in Eldritch Horror. I don't know. I just feel like there's more options of what to do. Whereas in Arkham 3rd, I feel like, okay, I'm warding again. Okay, I'm still warding. Or I'm fighting an enemy. I don't know. For some reason, I feel more constrained in Arkham 3rd. And it's not that it's a bad game, and maybe with expansions I will like it more. And it's not even that I don't like it, it's just I like Eldritch more at this point.
You just prefer Eldritch.
Yeah.
I would love Eldritch so much more than I do if sometimes like the two actions didn't make it feel like such a slog Like, there are some times where there's a thing that pops up that you need to do, and it takes you half the friggin' game to get over there to do it.
See it, yeah.
And then you might not even get the encounter you're looking for while you're there. And it's there are just times where it feels like I want to do this thing. Just let me do this thing, please.
Yeah, Ian, and I've only ever played Eldritch Horror with like 4 or more players, like 4 or 5.
Sure.
But I would actually say that what you're saying about Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is how I feel about Eldritch Horror, where it takes me forever to do anything, and it seems like I will spend 2 turns just moving, trying to get to where I need to be, and then by the time I get there, there's a bigger priority that popped up on the other side of the globe, and it's like, all right, well, fine, like, give me another boat ticket, I'm gonna go that way now. And it's just, so...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a valid critique. I think it just kind of comes down to what you're looking for out of the game, ultimately. And I guess it's also kind of an unfair comparison, because Eldritch, like, I have all the expansions, and like,
Sure.
like say the introduction of the focus action was like a huge thing for Eldritch that makes it a much better game, and it's such a small thing, but it makes it better. And like, we only have 1 expansion for 3rd edition, but I suspect that my preference is gonna hold. But
Sure.
yeah,
Both fine games, though. Can't go wrong.
yeah, for sure.
But Ian, the one thing I will like wholeheartedly agree with you on is that I like Arkham 3rd, and I've only played like 5 games at this point,
Yeah.
and I still have yet to actually fully finish a game.
Oh, wow.
But every time we've sat down and I just kind of go, I kind of wish I were playing the LCG.
Yeah.
But then again, I have that problem with most games. So it might not
Fair.
actually be notable.
Fair.
Where are we? Nick, what's been grabbing you?
I'll be quick. A lot of my attention and free time has been focused onto various RPG stuff. Surprising nobody, and it's probably going to be that way for a while. So if you want to catch up and join in on some Dungeons and Dragons campaign prep streams every Wednesday morning, or some Astral Tides role-playing game actual plays every other Sunday. Our next one is not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, but a week from there. You can go to twitch.tv/Nicholas Corey. I changed it because that's smart, but at least now it's on brand with everything else that I have. So twitch.tv/Nicholas Corey for more RPG streaming. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. For my part, Tentacle Time's rough for me this time because I've been playing a lot of Arkham, and it's kind of been a return to form for me in that I haven't really been playing much else. I have been continuing my adventures in Fallen Order on PS4, and I did have my first wall that I hit. Being a Souls veteran, I'd say that in general the game was a little on the easier side. I didn't struggle on many of the bosses. I played Sekiro, so my parry game was pretty on point. The timing took a long time to dial in, but still pretty familiar. I hit the first boss that was a wall for me, and I really had to adjust dodging. Like, my instincts for dodging was something that I just had to completely reteach myself for this game specifically. But I did, and that boss, like, I basically went out and looked at, like, okay, why am I getting just throttled here? Went out and, like, I specifically searched for a YouTube guide, Fallen Order for Dark Souls players, because I'm like, there's got to be something here that I'm just doing wrong, that I've taught myself wrong from the other series. And it was 100% true. Basically, Dark Souls will teach you to dodge and dodge and dodge roll, and then dodge roll some more, depending on your build, of course. But like the instinct to just dodge and dodge roll is really strong. Whereas Fallen Order has 2 flavors of it. It has a sidestep and a dodge roll. And the way range works in that game is that when you dodge roll, most of the time you've then put yourself out of the way of a counterattack. Or out of range for your own ability to counterattack, which when you dodge, most of the time the counterattack is like one of your biggest windows to do regular damage. So I was really hamstringing myself, and this boss was the first time I really felt it. So all I did was train myself to sidestep most of the times, and I beat the boss on the next try. So fun adventures there. Anyway, I'm really digging Fallen Order. I kind of wish I could customize my lightsaber crystal a little bit more. They give you all the like hilts and emitters and like giving you the ability to change like your lightsaber handle, but I still stuck with the basic 3 colors, and it bothers me a little bit because none of them are the ones I would choose.
Can you torture the crystal to make it red?
Not yet.
Do they have a torture scene where you have the crystal on a table and you're like asking it where the drugs are going and
Where did I find?
exactly, and it slowly bleeds red. I'm
Swear to
sorry.
me!
I'm sorry.
Have you gotten the double-bladed lightsaber yet? Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's fun. That's fun.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Particularly
how
in crowds.
Yeah, I like how it actually does less damage than the single-bladed one, but I like that because it's crowd control, but then when you're fighting a boss, you switch back to single blade, and like, yeah.
Because your single blade's way better for like dueling.
Yeah.
But like blocking multiple laser blasts or dealing with multiple enemies, yeah. I don't know. I think the combat's pretty smooth. It's not as refined as most Souls likes, but it's still really satisfying, and it's a good Star Wars game, which that in and of itself is worth celebrating. So,
Can you spin the lightsaber above your head really, really fast and then fly away like a helicopter?
I haven't gained that ability yet,
Because that's canon.
but hope springs eternal.
Adjacent to Fallen Order, I started watching a playthrough of Knights of the Old Republic 2. And I'm 4 episodes into it, and I'm reminded how that is the best Star Wars story, hands down, in the entire franchise. I will fight you tooth and nail. And it is
I would say
biggest...
I would agree with you. I would agree with you on like the first half of it, but they didn't finish it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's... they added in patches later that quote-unquote fix the ending, and I'm not sure if the version I played had that or not. I don't think so, because I played an Xbox version. But anyway.
Well, that came out like way later, like after Obsidian released everything.
So I'm just saying, like, that, like, to me, like, that is the biggest crime in Star Wars history, that got stricken from everything, and that the Old Republic came out and just wiped it clean. And I don't want to get into it, but God, KOTOR 2,
I kind of want to get into it.
amazing story.
Yeah,
Absolutely amazing story.
I think as far as like, hey, let's mix up the tropes of the Star Wars universe. Like that's how you do it.
It was
don't
so
do it like
needed.
Last Jedi.
No, it was so needed. Like, the way KOTOR did it. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, agree. I need to go back and play that game. And I tried. I downloaded it on Steam, but for
It's
some
the
reason,
hardest one. Like, KOTOR 2 is so hard to get a reliable build, which is so
Yeah, it's
frustrating.
unfortunate because
everything.
I would play that for sure. I still have my original discs. I wonder if there's some way I could like partition a drive and just like get XP back on a computer. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. All right, cool. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for episode 78. As I said, join our Discord if you want to join us for future recordings. Check out, or keep an eye out, rather, for Dissonant Voices if you're a patron. If that's something that interests you, feel free to become a patron. We'd be happy to have you. And then pay attention to our YouTube and Twitch channels because we kind of got those up and active again. So, from all of us here at the Mythos Busters offices, we'll bid you adieu, and we'll see you for 79. Bye.
Bye.